Nothing about tonight was accidental. You were not scrolling aimlessly, and this did not appear in front of you by chance. Something was moved. Something was quietly rerouted so that these words would reach you at the exact hour you needed them most. You may not have told anyone what you have been carrying. You may have smiled today, answered the messages, done the work, said you were fine. But I saw the part of you that has been holding its breath for months, waiting for a sign that any of this still makes sense. This is that sign. Not a coincidence, not an algorithm, a rerouting. Stay with me, because in the next few minutes I am going to explain exactly what was moved out of your path, what was placed into it, and why the delay you have been cursing was the very thing that saved you. You have been asking questions in the dark, not the polite kind of questions people say out loud in rooms full of other people, the raw ones, the ones you ask at 2 in the morning when the house is quiet and there is nobody left to perform for. Why does it keep happening to me? Why did that door close? Why do I feel like I am doing everything right and still standing in the same place? Why does everyone else seem to be moving while I am stuck in a season that will not break? You thought those questions went nowhere. You thought they dissolved into the ceiling. They did not. Every single one of them was received. And tonight, some of them are being answered. Type Amen if you can feel that this message found you on purpose. Let me tell you what a rerouting actually is, because most people misunderstand it completely. A rerouting is not a punishment. It is not a sign that you fell out of favor. A rerouting is what happens when the road you were walking toward would have cost you more than you could afford to lose, and something intervened before you arrived there. You felt it as a closed door. You felt it as a phone call that never came, a job that went to someone else, a person who suddenly went quiet, a plan that fell apart 3 days before it was supposed to begin. You interpreted it as rejection. You grieved it as failure. But what actually happened is that a hand reached into the timeline of your life and turned you a few degrees to the left, and you never got to see the wreckage you drove past. Think back. There is at least one thing in your life that you begged for and did not receive, and today you thank whatever mercy kept it from you. You know exactly what it is. Maybe it was a person you were sure was the one, and now you cannot imagine the version of your life where they stayed. Maybe it was an opportunity that looked like salvation and later revealed itself as a cage with better lighting. You have already lived through at least one rerouting that you now recognize as protection. So the question is simple. If it happened before, why would you assume the closed doors of this current season are any different? The hardest part of being rerouted is that you almost never understand it in real time. Understanding comes later, from a higher place on the road, when you can finally see the shape of the valley you were walking through. In the moment, all you feel is the interruption. All you feel is the loss of the version of your life you had already decorated in your imagination. And I want you to know that the grief you felt over that imagined life was not foolish. It was real. You were allowed to mourn it. But mourning something does not mean it was meant for you. Sometimes you cry over a house that would have burned down with you inside it. Tonight I want to name something you have not let yourself name. You have started to wonder if you are being ignored. Not out loud. You would never say it that way. But somewhere underneath the prayers and the affirmations and the trying, a small, quiet suspicion took root. That maybe you were skipped. That maybe the good things go to other people and you were assigned the long version of everything. I am addressing that suspicion directly because it has been draining you more than any of your circumstances have. You were not skipped, you were slowed, and those are not the same word. Slowness in your life has been misread as absence. But listen to what slowness actually did for you. It kept you from signing a contract you could not have escaped. It kept you from tying your name to a situation that was already unraveling behind closed doors. It gave you time to grow a spine you did not have 3 years ago. It taught you how to sit with yourself without needing constant noise to feel real. The slow years built the person who is now capable of holding what is coming. If it had come earlier, you would have dropped it, and then you would have blamed yourself for the rest of your life. Type 777 if you have been slowed but never abandoned. I want to sit inside that idea a little longer, because it is the hinge that everything else turns on. There is a difference between a life that is delayed and a life that is denied, and almost nobody is taught how to tell them apart. A denied life goes quiet permanently. There is no pull, there is no ache. You stop wanting it, and you feel nothing when you remember it. But a delayed life keeps calling you. It shows up in your chest at odd moments. You see something on the street that reminds you of it, and your whole body responds. That ache you have been treating as torture is actually a signal. Things that are truly finished do not continue to hurt this specifically. They fade. What still aches is still alive. So the ache is not your enemy. The ache is the proof of the connection. You have been trying to kill it because it is uncomfortable, and every time you kill it, you also kill the thread that ties you to the thing you are supposed to reach. Stop killing it. Let it live in you quietly without demanding that it resolve today. The ache is a compass, not a wound, and the reason it hurts is because compasses have to be sensitive to work. There is another thing about slowness that I want you to hear, and it is going to sound strange at first. Some of the slowness in your life was not about you at all. It was about someone else who was not ready yet. You have been assuming that every delay is a comment on your worthiness, and that assumption has caused you enormous unnecessary pain. But a life is not a single thread, it is a weaving. And sometimes the thread has to wait for the other threads to arrive at the right position. There is a person, or a place, or a set of circumstances that had to develop independently of you, and the timing you have been fighting is the timing of their arrival, not the timing of your permission. Imagine how it would change your posture if you knew that. If you knew that this waiting room you have been sitting in for years is not a punishment cell, but a synchronization point, you would stop pacing. You would stop checking the door every 11 minutes. You would sit down properly and you would rest, because you would understand that nothing is being withheld, something is being aligned. Type 111 if you are ready to stop taking the delay personally. There is something else I want you to understand about being rerouted, and this one is harder to accept. Some of the doors that closed were closed because of people. Not fate, not karma, not some abstract cosmic tide. People. Someone said something about you in a room you were not standing in. Someone chose themselves over you and dressed it up as a difficult decision. Someone who called you family made a calculation, and you were on the wrong side of it. You have felt this even without proof, that strange sensation of a door shutting for reasons that were never explained to you. You are not paranoid. You were reading the room correctly. And here is the part that will free you. It did not work. Whatever was decided about you in that room, whatever was withheld, whatever was quietly taken, it did not change your destination. It changed your route. That is all it was ever able to do. Human beings can delay you, inconvenience you, embarrass you, exhaust you. They cannot cancel you. There is not a person alive with the authority to revoke what was assigned to your name before you were born into this body. They only had access to the map. They never had access to the destination. So stop replaying it. I know you have been replaying it. You have rehearsed conversations in the shower that will never happen. You have imagined the moment they finally understand what they did. You have written the message and deleted it 11 times. I am not going to tell you that your anger is wrong, because it is not. Something was actually taken from you, but I am going to tell you what that anger is costing. It is keeping you employed as a security guard at a building that has already been condemned. You are standing watch over a version of your life that no longer exists, and it is consuming the energy you need for the version that does. I want to be careful here, because a lot of people hear this and think they are being told to pretend it did not happen. That is not what I am saying. Pretending is not forgiveness, it is suppression with better manners, and suppression always resurfaces as something worse. You are allowed to acknowledge exactly what occurred. You are allowed to say, out loud if you need to, that it was unjust and that you did not deserve it. What you are being asked to release is not the truth of the event. It is the ongoing employment of your mind in the service of the event. There is a difference between remembering something and living inside it. And here is a test you can use to know whether you have actually released it, not whether you still feel something when their name comes up. You will feel something for a long time, and that is normal. The test is whether your decisions are still being made in reference to them. Are you choosing your path partly to prove something? Are you measuring your progress against their progress? Are you imagining their reaction to your success as part of the reward? If yes, they are still in the room, and they are still eating the meal that was prepared for you. Take them out of the room. Not with hatred, with a kind of administrative calm. This chapter is closed, the account is settled, and you are no longer accepting withdrawals from your peace. Let me speak to the exhaustion, because it is the loudest thing in you right now. You are not tired because you are lazy. You are tired because you have been doing 2 jobs simultaneously. You have been living your life and simultaneously defending it, explaining yourself, proving yourself, justifying the pace of your own healing to people who never asked how you were, only when you would be finished. You have been carrying the weight of a situation and also the weight of everyone's opinion about how you should be carrying it. That second weight was never yours. Set it down tonight. Nobody who has not walked your exact road has the standing to grade your walking. And notice how much of your energy goes to anticipation, not to actual events, to the imagined versions of events that never arrive. You have prepared for disasters that did not come. You have written speeches for confrontations that never happened. You have lived through the same painful scenario 11 times in your mind, and it occurred 0 times in your life. This is not a character flaw. It is a nervous system that learned, correctly, at some point, that being unprepared was dangerous. But the environment changed, and the system did not get the message. Tonight is the message. There is a specific kind of loneliness that comes with being rerouted, and I want to acknowledge it directly. When your path changes, the people who were only connected to your old path start to fade. Not dramatically. There is rarely a fight. The calls just get shorter, the plans stop getting made. You look up one day and realize you are no longer in the group chat, and stranger still, you do not miss it as much as you thought you would. That fading was not a failure of your character. It was the natural sorting that happens when your direction changes. Some people were assigned to a chapter, not to the book. This is one of the loneliest things a person can go through, and it is made lonelier by the fact that there is no ceremony for it. When someone dies, there is a funeral. People bring food. There is a socially recognized period where you are allowed to be broken. But when a friendship quietly evaporates, when a family relationship becomes formal, when the people who once knew everything about you now know nothing, there is no ritual. You just carry it privately while everyone assumes you are fine because nothing dramatic happened. I am giving you the ceremony now. What you lost was real. It deserved acknowledgement. Consider it acknowledged. Type 111 if you have lost people simply because you outgrew the room. I want to say something about the guilt that comes with outgrowing people, because you have it and you have not admitted it. You feel like a traitor. Some part of you believes that loyalty means staying exactly where you were, at exactly the level you were, forever, and that any upward movement is a kind of abandonment. Where did you learn that? Probably from someone who benefited from you staying. Real loyalty is not stagnation. You can love people from a different altitude. You can wish someone well without agreeing to remain in the conditions that were hurting you. Growth is not betrayal, and anyone who frames it that way is telling you what they need, not what is true. And now let me tell you what was placed into your path while you were busy grieving what was taken out of it. There is a person who has already crossed your life, who is going to matter far more than you currently realize. You met them casually. Maybe through work, maybe through an ordinary conversation you almost did not have. You did not feel fireworks. There was no dramatic recognition. You filed them under acquaintance and moved on. But that meeting was arranged. That connection was placed. And within this coming season, something is going to open through them that you could not have opened through any of your own efforts. That is worth pausing on, because it changes how you should be treating your ordinary days. You have been waiting for lightning. You have been assuming that when the important thing arrives, it will announce itself with music and certainty. It almost never does. The most consequential moments in a life are usually indistinguishable from the unimportant ones while they are happening. The conversation that changes everything sounds exactly like a conversation. This means the way you handle small, ordinary interactions is not a minor detail, it is the actual mechanism. Be decent to the person you will never see again, because you might. There is also a piece of information heading toward you. A conversation, a message, a document, a sentence spoken almost in passing that is going to resolve a question you have been carrying for a long time. You have been trying to force clarity through thinking. You have analyzed the same situation from 40 angles and arrived nowhere because clarity was never going to come from analysis. It was going to come from information you did not yet possess. And that information is being delivered, not manufactured. Your job is not to figure it out. Your job is to stay open enough to receive it when it arrives and not be so exhausted from overthinking that you miss it. Understand what overthinking actually is. It is not intelligence. It is fear wearing the costume of intelligence. Real thinking arrives at a conclusion and then acts. Overthinking circles the same terrain indefinitely because arriving at a conclusion would require a decision, and a decision would require risk. So the mind stays busy in order to feel productive while remaining perfectly safe. You have been doing this for months about at least one thing, and I want you to notice that no amount of additional circling has produced new information. You already know. You have known for a while. You are just waiting for permission or for certainty, and neither is coming. I want to talk to you now about the difference between fighting and standing. You have spent a long time fighting for attention, for fairness, for a place at a table that kept changing its shape, and fighting has its season. There were moments when you had to fight, and I want you to know I was not absent in those moments. I was in the strength that showed up in you when you had nothing left. That was not adrenaline, that was provision. But this season is not a fighting season. This is a standing season. Standing means you stay where you are, you hold your integrity, and you let the situation resolve around you without your interference. Standing feels wrong at first. It feels passive. Everything in your conditioning tells you that if you are not actively fixing something, you are permitting it to get worse. That belief was installed in you by a life where nobody ever came to help, so you learned that you were the only rescue available. I understand why you learned it. It kept you alive. But it is no longer accurate, and beliefs that were once survival tools become prisons when you carry them past their usefulness. You are not the only one working on your life anymore. You never actually were. Here is how you will know the difference between standing and hiding, because they can look identical from the outside. Standing is calm, hiding is tense. When you are standing, you are available. You answer the message. You show up to the meeting. You are simply not forcing the outcome. When you are hiding, you are avoiding. You do not check the email. You let the situation drift, because engaging with it frightens you. Both look like inactivity. One is trust, and the other is fear. Be honest with yourself about which one you have been practicing this month, because the season ahead will require the first and will punish the second. Type 222 if you are ready to stop fighting battles that were already handled. Now I want to speak to the part of you that is afraid to hope. This is the deepest layer, and most people never say it out loud. You are not afraid of failure. You have survived failure repeatedly. and you know you can survive it again. You are afraid of hoping and being wrong. You are afraid of letting yourself believe something good is coming, arranging your heart around it, and then watching it dissolve. Because that particular pain, the pain of a hope that collapsed, is the one you have never fully recovered from. So you have started protecting yourself by expecting less. You call it being realistic. It is actually a form of armor. I understand the armor. I am not asking you to remove it recklessly, but I am asking you to notice something. The armor does not actually prevent pain. Disappointment still finds you. All the armor does is prevent joy from getting in when the good thing finally arrives. You have already had small good things happen this year that you did not fully feel because you were braced for the catch. You received the compliment and looked for the motive. You got the opportunity and waited for the collapse. Hope was not what hurt you. The situation hurt you. Hope was just the thing standing closest when it happened, so it got blamed. There is a version of hope that is safe to carry, and I want to give it to you because the version you were using before was heavier than it needed to be. The old version required a specific outcome. You hoped for that job, that person, that answer, that date on the calendar, and when the specific thing did not materialize, the entire structure collapsed because it was built on a single point. The new version is different. It hopes toward direction rather than destination. It says something good is moving toward me and I do not need to know its shape in advance. That kind of hope cannot be destroyed by a single disappointment because it was never resting on a single thing. Practice that. When you feel hope rising, resist the urge to immediately attach it to a specific outcome. Let it stay general. Let it be a warmth rather than a plan. This is not vagueness for its own sake. It is structural. You are building a hope that can survive contact with reality, and the only way to do that is to stop making it fragile by over-specifying it. Let me tell you what tonight is actually about. Tonight is about restoring your ability to be surprised in a good way. That capacity was damaged, not destroyed, damaged. And it is being repaired slowly, which is why the good things coming to you are going to arrive in a specific order. Small things first. Almost too small to celebrate. A day that goes unexpectedly smoothly. A bill that comes in lower than you feared. A conversation with someone difficult that does not turn into a fight. You are going to be tempted to dismiss these as coincidence. Do not dismiss them. They are practice. Your heart is being retrained to receive. There will be moments in the coming weeks where you feel a strange lightness for no traceable reason. You will be doing something ordinary, driving, washing dishes, walking to your car, and a wave of ease will pass through you that does not match your circumstances. Do not interrogate it. Do not immediately search your life for evidence that it is unjustified. That lightness is a preview. It is your body remembering what peace felt like before the last few years taught it to stay alert. Let it stay as long as it wants to stay. I want to address your body directly because it has been keeping score. Your body has been holding a posture of readiness for so long that it has forgotten how to fully release. That is why you wake up already tired. That is why your shoulders live somewhere near your ears. That is why you can be sitting in complete safety and still feel a low hum of alarm underneath everything. Your body is not malfunctioning. It is loyal. It is still guarding a door that no longer has anything behind it. It needs to be told repeatedly and patiently that the emergency ended, not once. Repeatedly. Healing is a conversation, not an announcement. And it will not respond to arguments. You cannot logic your body into safety. You have tried. You have explained to yourself very reasonably that there is nothing to fear, and your chest continued to tighten anyway, and then you added a second layer of frustration because you could not control your own reaction. Stop arguing with it. Bodies respond to evidence, not explanation. Give it evidence. A slow meal, a full night, a walk with no destination, a conversation where you told the truth and nothing bad happened. Enough small pieces of evidence, and it will begin, slowly, to update its assessment of the world. Type 555, if your body has been carrying what your mouth never said. There is a question you have been asking that I want to answer plainly. You have been asking whether you wasted time, whether those years, that relationship, that job, that version of yourself, whether all of it was simply lost. I want to be very direct with you. Nothing was wasted. Not 1 year, not one humiliation, not one season of walking in circles. You are made of everything you survived, and the specific texture of your compassion, the reason you can spot pain in a room before anyone speaks, the reason people tell you things they have never told anyone, all of that was purchased in those years. You did not lose that time. You paid for something with it. And here is what you paid for. You paid for discernment. Do you understand how rare that is? You can now sense when something is off before you have language for it. You can feel manipulation the moment it enters a conversation. You know the difference between someone who is tired and someone who is hiding. That instrument inside you was not standard equipment. It was forged. And it was forged in exactly the fire you have been calling wasted time. The very thing that hurt you the most became the sense organ that will protect you for the rest of your life. But I want to warn you about that instrument too, because it can be miscalibrated. Discernment that comes from wisdom is quiet. It notices, it adjusts, it moves on. Discernment that comes from unhealed injury is loud. It scans constantly. It finds threats in neutral situations. It reads a delayed reply as abandonment and a change in tone as betrayal. If your instrument is currently firing at everything, that does not mean everyone around you is dangerous. It means the instrument is still tuned to a past environment. Give it time and evidence, and it will settle into something far more accurate and far less exhausting. Now, understand this about the season ahead. Things are going to begin moving faster than you are used to, and that speed is going to be uncomfortable at first. You have adapted to slowness. You have built a personality around waiting. So when things start to open, you may find yourself hesitating, second-guessing, even self-sabotaging in small ways, because momentum feels foreign. Watch for that. When the door opens, walk through it before you have finished analyzing it. Not recklessly, but do not require certainty as the price of movement, because certainty is rarely offered in advance. Self-sabotage is worth describing precisely, because it almost never looks like sabotage while you are doing it. It looks like being busy. It looks like a sudden, urgent need to reorganize something that did not need reorganizing. It looks like picking a small fight with someone who is close to you 3 days before something important. It looks like getting sick for no reason. It looks like deciding, at exactly the wrong moment, that you need more preparation. The nervous system does not want you harmed. It wants you familiar. And when your life begins to exceed the boundaries of the familiar, it will manufacture a reason to pull you back inside. Recognize it when it comes. Name it out loud. Naming it removes most of its authority. There is going to be a moment, and I want you to remember this when it comes, where you are asked to make a decision without full information. It will feel unfair. You will want more data, more time, more reassurance. You will not get it. And that is not cruelty, that is the design, because if you had full certainty, the decision would require nothing of you. What is being built in you right now is the capacity to move on trust rather than proof. And that capacity cannot be developed in comfortable conditions. When that moment comes, choose the option that expands you rather than the one that protects you. Let me give you a simple way to tell the difference in the moment, because in the moment it gets confusing. The expanding option usually makes your chest feel slightly larger and slightly more afraid at the same time. The protecting option usually makes your chest feel smaller and slightly relieved and slightly ashamed. Fear plus expansion is usually the right door. Relief plus shame is almost always the wrong one. Your body knows the answer roughly 2 seconds before your mind constructs a justification for the opposite. Learn to catch those 2 seconds. Type 1212 if you are ready to move before you have all the answers. I want to speak now to the person in your life who does not understand you anymore. There is someone close to you, someone you love, who has been reacting strangely to your changes. They may have made comments. They may have said you have become distant or arrogant, or that you think you are better than everyone now. That accusation stung because it is the opposite of what is happening inside you. You have not become superior. You have become quieter. You stopped participating in conversations that drain you. You stopped explaining yourself to people who were only listening for a weakness. Their discomfort is not evidence that you did something wrong. Their discomfort is evidence that your change interrupted something they were relying on. When you were struggling, you occupied a certain position in the arrangement. You were the one who needed advice. You were the one who made others feel useful, or stable, or ahead. As you rise, that arrangement dissolves, and the people who were comfortable in it feel a loss they cannot name, so they name it as a flaw in your character instead. Do not defend yourself. Do not shrink to restore the old balance. Some relationships have to renegotiate their terms or end, and both outcomes are survivable. And I want to be fair to them for a moment, because bitterness would be easy here, and it would cost you. Most of the people who resist your growth are not villains. They are frightened. Your change reminds them that change is possible, and possibility is unbearable to someone who has spent years explaining why their own situation is fixed. You are not causing their pain, you are exposing it. And exposure feels like an attack to a person who has organized their entire life around not looking. Have compassion, just do not have compliance. Those are two different things, and most people collapse them into one. I want to give you permission for something you have been withholding from yourself. Permission to be happy before everything is resolved. You have been operating under an unspoken rule that joy is only appropriate once the problems are handled, once the money is right, once the situation with that person is settled, once you have proof that the future is safe. But that rule is a trap, because there will always be an unresolved thing. Life does not arrive at completion and then hand you a certificate authorizing enjoyment. Joy has to be taken while things are still unfinished, or it will never be taken at all. So take it. Take a small piece of joy tomorrow while your problems are still standing in the corner, unresolved. Eat the meal slowly. Take the longer route home. Say yes to the thing you would normally decline because you felt you had not earned rest. You do not earn rest. You receive it. And every time you receive it, you weaken the old belief that your worth is measured by your productivity. That belief has run your life for long enough. Tonight it loses a little more of its grip. There is a fear underneath that belief that I want to bring into the open. You are afraid that if you stop performing, you will be discovered as ordinary, that your value was always in the output, the usefulness, the reliability, the fixing, and that a version of you who rests will be a version nobody has any reason to keep. That fear is old. It usually starts early, in a house where affection arrived attached to achievement. And I want to tell you plainly that it is false, and I want to tell you how you will discover it is false, not by argument, by experiment. Rest once and observe who stays. You will find that the people worth having were never paying you for your labor in the first place. Type 333 to claim peace that does not depend on your circumstances. There is something happening in the unseen part of your situation that I want to describe, because you have been trying to influence things you have no access to. Some of what concerns you is being handled in rooms you will never enter, by people you have never met, through mechanisms you would not understand, even if they were explained. Your worry has been trying to reach into those rooms, and it cannot. That is why worry feels so exhausting and produces so little. It is effort applied to a surface with no traction. Release the rooms you cannot enter. Focus entirely on the part of the situation your own two hands can actually touch. And what can your hands touch? Your response, your integrity, your consistency in the small things nobody is applauding, the message you send, the habit you keep when nobody is watching, the way you speak to yourself when you make a mistake. That is your jurisdiction, and it is enormous. Most people neglect their entire jurisdiction while obsessing over territory that was never assigned to them. Do the opposite. Become excellent inside your own borders and let the rest be handled by whatever has been handling it all along. The way you speak to yourself deserves its own attention because you have been running a commentary that you would never tolerate from another person. You call yourself names in your head that would end a friendship if said out loud. You review your own errors with a prosecutorial energy that you never apply to anyone else's. And you have justified this by telling yourself it keeps you sharp, it keeps you humble, it keeps you from getting complacent. It does none of those things. Cruelty does not produce excellence. It produces paralysis dressed as standards. The people who perform best over long periods are not the ones who punish themselves most efficiently. They are the ones who recover fastest, and you cannot recover fast in a hostile environment, including an internal one. So change the voice, not to flattery, to fairness. Speak to yourself the way you would speak to someone you respect, who made a normal human mistake. That is all. Fairness. You have been living under an unfair judge for years, and you have mistaken the harshness for accuracy. I want to return to the word rerouted, because I want you to carry it out of this video and into your week. When something falls apart in the coming days, and something will, I want that word to arrive in your mind before panic does. Rerouted, not ruined. Not cursed, not further evidence that you are somehow marked for difficulty. Rerouted. A turn was taken on your behalf. You will understand it later from a higher point on the road. Practice saying it when the small disappointments come, so that the word is already familiar when a larger one arrives. This is more important than it sounds. Your interpretation of events determines almost everything about how much they cost you. Two people can lose the same job on the same day. One spends 6 months in collapse, absorbing it as proof of personal defect. The other spends 6 weeks in adjustment and arrives somewhere better. The event was identical, the interpretation was not. And interpretation is one of the very few things in your life that is entirely within your jurisdiction. You will not always choose your circumstances. You will always choose the story you tell about them. And that story is not a decoration. It is the load-bearing wall. There is a memory that has been surfacing for you recently. Something from years ago that you had not thought about in a long time, and lately it keeps returning at odd hours. You have been wondering why. You have been assuming it is just your mind being random. It is not random. That memory is surfacing because there is something in it that has not been processed, and you are finally strong enough to process it. That is why now, your mind does not raise old material until it believes you can handle it. Its return is a complement to your current strength, not a symptom of your weakness. When it comes back next time, do not push it away. Sit with it for 2 minutes. Ask yourself what you concluded about yourself in that moment, because you concluded something, and that conclusion has been quietly governing your decisions ever since. Maybe you concluded you were too much. Maybe you concluded you were forgettable. Maybe you concluded that if you needed anything, you would be a burden. Find the conclusion. Once you can see it clearly, it loses most of its power, because conclusions only run your life while they remain invisible. And notice how young the conclusion sounds when you finally hear it clearly. That is the tell. These conclusions are almost always formed by a much younger version of you, with a much smaller vocabulary, in a moment of overwhelming feeling and very limited information. A child decided something enormous about the nature of love or safety or worth, and that decision has been quietly running an adult life for decades without ever being reviewed. It is not that the child was stupid. The child was doing excellent work with the data available, but the data was incomplete, and you have gathered a great deal more since then, and nobody has updated the file. Update it. Not with force, just with attention. Say the conclusion out loud, and then say what you know now that you did not know then. That is the whole process. It sounds too simple to work. It works. Type Amen if something old is finally ready to be released. Now let me tell you what I see when I look at your life, since you have been unable to see it clearly for a while. I see someone who kept going after the point where nobody would have blamed them for stopping. I see someone who was kind in situations that did not require kindness and offered nothing in return for it. I see someone who has been the reason another person did not give up, and you do not even know which person or which day. There is at least one human being walking around right now whose life is measurably different because of a single thing you did and forgot about. You have measured your value entirely by outcomes, and outcomes have been slow, so you concluded you had little value. That equation is wrong at the foundation. Value is not produced by outcomes. It is expressed through character, and your character has held under pressure that has cracked people with far better circumstances. You did not become bitter. You could have. It was available to you. It was justified, and you did not take it. That refusal is not nothing. That refusal is the whole thing. Consider how many people you have met who took the other option, who were hurt and decided that hurting back was the only reasonable response, who were failed by someone and concluded that everyone fails, and then began behaving accordingly, and then generated exactly the world they expected. You could have joined them. Nobody would have argued with you. You had the receipts, and instead, you kept extending a version of trust that had cost you before. That is not naivety. Naivety is trusting because you do not know better. What you have been doing is far rarer. You know better, and you choose it anyway. That is a decision made by someone with a spine, not someone with a blindfold. I want to prepare you for something specific. In the season ahead, someone is going to return. Someone from a chapter that felt closed. They may reach out with an apology, or a proposal, or simply a message that pretends the gap never happened. And you are going to feel a complicated mixture of vindication and grief. Here is what I want you to hold on to. Their return is not the confirmation of your worth. Your worth was never in question and was never in their custody. Their return is simply information. Take it as information, not as a verdict. You are free to let them back in or to leave the door closed, and both choices can be made from a healthy place. What matters is the position you are standing in when you decide. Do not decide from hunger. Do not decide from the desperate wish to be chosen. Decide from the fullness you have been building in the silence. If you decide from fullness, either answer will be right. If you decide from hunger, either answer will hurt you. The decision matters less than the state you make it from. And when they come, watch for one thing above all others, not whether they apologize. Words are cheap, and most people can produce a good apology under pressure. Watch whether they have changed the conditions that produced the harm. Has anything in their actual life been rearranged? Have they done any visible work? Because a person who has done nothing but feel bad has changed nothing, and returning to them is returning to the same machine with a new coat of paint on the outside. You are not required to be anyone's second chance at a lesson they have not studied for. Type 777 if you refuse to negotiate from a place of desperation ever again. There is a financial pressure in your life that I have not addressed directly, and I want to because it has been sitting underneath everything. You have been doing math in your head at hours when you should have been sleeping, not because you are irresponsible, but because you have been carrying more than one person should carry alone. And I want to tell you that the pressure is going to ease, but I want to be honest with you about how. It will not ease through a single dramatic event. It will ease through a sequence of small, correct decisions that compound faster than you expect. Something is going to be recovered. Money you assumed was gone, a reimbursement, an owed amount, a resource you had written off, is going to come back into your hands. It may not be enormous, but it will arrive at a moment when it changes the emotional weight of everything, and that emotional shift will be worth more than the number itself. Because the moment you stop operating from scarcity is the moment your decisions improve, and improved decisions are what actually build the future. I want to say something about scarcity that nobody says, because it will help you understand your own behavior of the last few years. Scarcity does not just limit your options, it narrows your vision. When a person is under sustained financial pressure, the mind contracts to a very short time horizon because survival requires attention on today. And that contraction is intelligent in an emergency and catastrophic over years, because every good decision in life requires a longer view than survival permits. This is why you have made choices that confused you afterward. You were not being foolish. You were being managed by a nervous system in emergency mode, and emergency mode cannot plan. So the first form of relief is not the money, it is the widening. And the widening can begin before the money arrives, in small ways. Think about one thing that is 12 months out. Just think about it. Do not solve it. Practice looking further than tomorrow, 1 minute at a time, and you will notice your decisions improving before your circumstances do. Let me address the guilt now, because there is guilt in you and it is misplaced. You feel guilty about time you spent, about people you could not save, about a version of yourself you were during a hard year. You have been quietly serving a sentence for crimes that were mostly just the ordinary failures of a human being under pressure. I want to be very clear with you. You have been forgiven for longer than you have been asking. The delay was never in the granting of it. The delay has been entirely in your receiving of it. You have confused punishing yourself with taking responsibility. They are not the same. Responsibility is forward-facing. It says, here is what I did, here is what I learned, here is how I will behave now. Punishment is circular. It says, here is what I did, and I will pay for it by feeling terrible indefinitely, and the feeling terrible will somehow constitute payment. It does not. It only removes the energy you would have used to do better. Set the sentence down, it has been served. And there is a particular guilt I want to name because it is heavier than the rest. The guilt about someone you could not help, someone who was drowning and you reached and it did not work, or you did not reach and now they are gone from your life in one way or another. You have replayed the moment you could have said something. You have constructed an alternate history where you were more attentive, more forceful, more available, and everything turned out differently. I want to tell you gently that you were not the deciding factor. You have been assigning yourself a level of power over another person's path that no human being actually possesses. That assignment feels like love. It is actually a form of grandiosity that grief installs to make helplessness bearable. You could not have saved them, not because you did not care enough, because it was never within your authority. And the reason that is hard to accept is that accepting it means accepting that you were helpless, and helplessness is more painful than guilt. Guilt, at least, implies control. But you must accept it anyway, because the alternative is spending the rest of your life paying a debt that was never yours. Type 111 to release guilt that has already been paid for. As this season shifts, you are going to notice that you no longer feel the need to explain yourself constantly. That will be one of the clearest signs that the internal work took. You will make a decision and simply live with it, without preparing a defense in advance for people who never asked. That silence is not coldness, it is settledness. When you know who you are, you stop needing a jury. You will also notice that your standards rise without effort. Things you tolerated for years will suddenly feel unbearable, not because you became difficult, but because you finally believe you deserve better, and belief changes what you accept. Some situations will end quickly once you stop feeding them. Do not mourn that. A relationship, a job, a habit that cannot survive. You having self-respect was never sustainable in the first place. There will be a strange grief in this too, and I want to prepare you for it so it does not confuse you when it comes. You may find yourself missing situations that were bad for you. That is normal, and it does not mean you were wrong to leave. Familiarity generates attachment independently of quality. You can miss a place that hurt you the same way you can miss a house you grew up in, even though the house was cold. The missing is not evidence. Do not let it be used against you by the part of you that wants to go backward. Feel the missing, acknowledge it, and stay where you are. There is a specific instruction I want to leave with you for the next 30 days. When you do not know what to do the next small honest thing, not the impressive thing, not the strategic thing. The next small honest thing. Send the message. Make the call. Clean the room. Tell the truth. Say the no. Rest when you are tired, instead of proving you can push through. A life gets rebuilt through an accumulation of small, honest acts, and there is no other method that has ever worked for anyone. I want to expand on that, because people hear it and think it is too modest to matter. Consider what has actually changed your life so far. Almost none of it was a grand gesture. It was a conversation you almost did not have. A day you decided not to quit. A single message sent while afraid. A door you walked through without being sure. The large, visible turning points in a biography are almost always the consequence of small, invisible decisions that nobody would have filmed. You are in the invisible part right now. That is not the same as being in the stalled part, though they feel identical from inside. And when you feel the doubt return, and it will, do not fight it. Fighting doubt gives it a partner. Just notice it, name it, and continue moving. Doubt is not a stop sign, it is weather. You have walked through weather before, you are still walking. The presence of fear has never once meant the absence of protection, and tonight, I want that written somewhere you can read it in the hard hours. Type 222 if you will, keep walking, even when the road is unclear. I want to address the loneliness of the middle, because that is where you are. Not at the beginning where the pain is fresh and people bring casseroles. Not at the end where you have a testimony and a nice story. The middle, where nothing is dramatic and nothing is finished, and every day looks approximately like the last one. The middle is where most people quit, and they do not quit because it is hard. They quit because it is boring, and boredom is a far more effective destroyer of destiny than difficulty has ever been. So here is what you need for the middle. Not motivation. Motivation is a mood, and moods are unreliable employees. You need a structure that operates without your enthusiasm. A few things you do, regardless of how you feel about them on a given morning. Because on most mornings, you will not feel like it, and if your progress depends on feeling like it, your progress will be as inconsistent as your sleep. Build something that runs when you are tired. That is the entire secret, and it is not inspiring, and it works. There is something else about the middle. It is where your actual character gets formed, and character formed in the middle is the only kind that holds. Anyone can be admirable in a crisis for a weekend. Crisis produces adrenaline, and adrenaline produces heroics. But the middle offers nothing. No applause, no urgency, no witness. Whatever you are when there is no reward for being, it is who you actually are, and that person is being built right now in these unremarkable weeks you have been dismissing as wasted. I want to say something about prayer, or whatever word you use, for the thing you do when you are alone and speaking to something you cannot see. You have started to feel self-conscious about it. You have wondered whether you are speaking into an empty room. The answer is no, but I want to correct something about how you have been doing it. You have been treating it like a request line, a list of outcomes you would like adjusted, and when the outcomes were not adjusted on schedule, you concluded the line was dead. But the point was never the list. The point was the contact. Something happens to a human being who regularly speaks honestly into the silence, and it happens whether or not the specific requests are granted. You become more truthful. You hear yourself say things you did not know you believed. You stop performing because there is no audience to perform for. That practice has been changing you the entire time you thought it was failing. The list was the excuse. The contact was the point. And I want to tell you what happens on the other side of that contact. Since you have wondered, nothing you say is discarded. Not the ugly parts, not the accusations you made in the worst week, not the times you said you were done and meant it. All of it was received without offense. You have been afraid of being too honest, as though honesty could damage the relationship. It cannot. The only thing that damages it is politeness, because politeness is distance wearing good manners. Say the true thing, say the angry thing, it will be met. Type 555 if you are ready to stop performing even in private. Now I want to talk about what you are actually being prepared for, because you have been assuming that all of this suffering was random, and it was not. There is a specific weight coming toward you, and I do not mean a burden, I mean a responsibility. Something is going to be placed in your hands that requires the exact qualities you were forced to develop. That is not a coincidence. That is how it always works. The people who end up carrying something significant are almost always the ones who were broken open in advance in exactly the shape of the thing they would later hold. You have wondered why your life had to be harder than the lives of people around you. This is part of the answer. Not all of it, because some suffering is simply the consequence of living in a world that is not finished. But part of it, and the part you can use, you are being widened. There is a capacity in you now that cannot be taught in a classroom, and cannot be purchased, and cannot be inherited. It can only be developed by going through something and not becoming cruel about it. And there are people waiting for you at the other end of this. Not metaphorically, actual people who will need exactly what you learned, phrased in exactly the way you would phrase it, delivered by someone with exactly your history. They will not be helped by someone who had an easy life and read about difficulty. They will be helped by you, specifically, because you will say something that only a person who has been there could say, and they will recognize it instantly. Your pain is going to become somebody's permission. I am not telling you this to make the suffering acceptable. Some of it was not acceptable, and I am not going to pretend otherwise. I am telling you because you have been searching for meaning, and meaning is not found by explaining the past, it is found by using it. You cannot go backward and make the hard years worth it. You can go forward and make them useful. That is the only redemption available to any of us, and it is more than enough. There is a particular fear I want to address now, the one that comes at 3 in the morning, the fear that you have already missed it. That whatever window existed, you were late to it, and everything from here is a diminished version of a life you were supposed to have. I want to answer that as directly as I can. There is no window. That is a scarcity concept borrowed from a world of limited seats and applied to a life that does not operate on those terms. You cannot be too late for your own life. The road you are on is not a consolation route, it is the route. And consider the arithmetic of it. Every person you would call successful has a story that contains a period where they were certain they had missed it. Read any of them. There is always a stretch of years where nothing worked, and everyone assumed it was over, including them. The stretch is not the exception to the story. It is the story. You are inside the part that will later be summarized in one sentence, and the sentence will make it sound brief, and it was not brief, and you will be the only one who knows how long it actually was. Type 111 if you are still here after a season that should have finished you. I want to speak to the ones listening tonight who are older than they expected to be while still waiting. There is a particular kind of ache that comes with watching time move, with noticing the number of your years and comparing it to the number of your accomplishments. You have been quietly ashamed of your age relative to your position. You have looked at younger people doing what you wanted to do and felt something close to humiliation. Put that down. It is based on a race that does not exist. Nobody is running against you. There is no bracket. The comparison you have been making requires all lives to be the same length and the same shape, and to have started from the same line. And none of that is true. Some people were handed a foundation. Some people had to build the foundation first. And building a foundation produces nothing visible for years and then produces everything at once. You have been comparing your foundation years to somebody else's visible years and calling yourself slow. That is not a fair measurement, and you would never apply it to anyone else. And there is something about arriving later that nobody mentions. What you build after 40 or 50 or 60 tends to last because you build it with a clear head and without the desperation for approval that ruins early success.